It says it's streaming live now.
Yeah, here we are. We're streaming live. Hey, welcome everybody. Jefferson Glassie here, your host for Planetary Gig Talk Live. Um, I'm the chief spiritual dude of the Planetary Gigs Society, whose mission is creating unity through music, but as I like to say, making connections through music with the intention of bringing peace. And I'm really excited to be able to have this conversation today about protest and intentional songs, political songs, because they're so important. They're part of the fabric of, really our country and what's important. And it's quite a time. I mean, I really think this is a perfect time to talk about, um, you know, what's going on now, what maybe the history of protest songs are and political songs and what's going on now. And we have a great panel of folks. First, I want to say hello to Elijah Wald. I met you at Blues Week, Augusta Heritage Center years ago. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us here today.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to see you too, as well as great to see Sparky Rucker, mentor of many, many people. Also met
Yeah.
Sparky at Blues Week, Augusta Heritage Center. My son Max took guitar lessons from you one of those years I remember. And Sparky's he's been walking the walk for a long time. Sparky, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Jefferson. Yeah, this Augusta brought a lot of people together, didn't it?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
they were some of our mentors
Yeah.
were there as well.
yeah. And last but not least, bat and cleanup, if you will. Introduced to this young man, performer by Brian Weber. He's a Washington, D.C. person like me. Saw his fabulous TED Talk not too long ago. Human beatbox, Christylze Bacon.
Yo,
Dude,
hey everyone.
so great to be with you all, really. And I just also want to give a shout out to Ray Zaragoza, who was going to be here, and we had to reschedule this, and she couldn't make it. But I really appreciate her being willing to have the conversation too, and because we do want to bring everybody in that we can to sort of focus on the importance of these songs and the role of music and the arts and in culture in our body politic, if you will. So, Elijah, I had interviewed you for Planetary Gig Talk Live, the podcast. I'm sorry, just not live, the podcast, maybe a year or two ago, and you told me a couple of things that made remarkable impressions on me. You talked about Woody Guthrie. We talked a little bit about that. You told me about his book, Bound for Glory, and that he was an excellent writer. And man, I just swallowed up that book, and it's put me in a lot of different directions. And you are you're a musician and an author and historian. So much about the history, and I just would love to hear maybe you talk a little bit about the history of protests and political songs or whatever you want to call them from your perspective, and how that's how this trajectory is going up until now.
Um, yeah, just talk a little bit. I mean, I think one thing that I'd really emphasize is that I think the way people use music to create community and to move things forward is much, much, much more important than what the words of the songs say. And I think that that's a direction that things went a little weird in the 60s, because I mean, the tradition of Woody Guthrie or Pete Seeger, a lot of those people, was getting people together, getting them singing together, getting them feeling together, just getting them, meeting other kinds of people and feeling a sort of community. And a lot of that was using songs where the lyrics weren't necessarily didactic. Um, it was about creating communities, or about people are out on a picket line and it's cold, and singing is a way to keep yourself a little bit warmer. Or people are out on a picket line and people are attacking them, and it's a way of making them hear that they're the other people with them and breathing together. And there was this sort of other direction that happened in the 60s where some people became stars singing protest songs. And you ended up with a lot of people singing songs which, I mean, I started going to rallies in the 70s and people would get up and there'd be all these speakers who'd be lecturing at you. And when I started going, a singer would then come up and we'd all sing together, and it was a relief from the lecture. And then it reached a point where singers were getting up and it was just another kind of lecture, but they now had a guitar and they were singing at us rather than with us. And so I've been really excited. One of the things that's really excited me is the honk festivals and the brass bands. And the fact that now when you go out to a rally, there'll be a brass band with the leftist brass band. And they don't have to be playing leftist brass. They're making a lot of noise and it's fun and it keeps the energy level up. And I think we need to remember that, you know, that's what music does, is it brings people together, it creates energy. And that's much more important than the words.
Wow, that's a great point. The underlying power of music, not just the words, but the spirit and the community. But do you mind saying one or two things about Woody Guthrie and what he did? I mean, I just, you know, traveling, hoboing around like probably millions of other people playing his guitar. This machine kills fascists written on his guitar.
Well, I think it's really important with Woody Guthrie to remember that one of the things he did was he created this persona. And what we need to remember, I mean, Woody Guthrie was reading Darwin, he was reading Freud. He was very much constantly educating himself. And he was sitting in a room with a typewriter and he was writing these songs and he was creating this idea of this guy who's just out there hoboing around with the people because he thought it was important for people to understand that kind of human communication and the fact that ideas happen everywhere and that the people he was meeting on the freight trains were just as interesting and just as intelligent and just as tuned in as anyone else and that we should listen to them. But it was a form of communication. He wasn't just somebody who went out bumming around on the freight trains and the songs came to him out of thin air. He was a complicated person of many parts. You know, like Sparky, like I think any artist. I mean, like, you know, like the older guys. I mean, these were people of many parts, and it's very easy to turn them into a sort of cartoon character.
Well, and so then Sparky, I mean, as I said, you've been walking the walk. I mean, musician, storyteller, folklorist, historian for so long, and, you know, came up a different path than some people, different path maybe than Woody Guthrie. And, but, you know, what's your perspective on this? You know, how did it start for you? What were you doing? What have you seen as you've come up through the years playing this music?
Well, let's drop back and punt on this, okay?
Sure.
Music has always been the glue that brings a community together, be it in church, be it going off to war. Just think about from every major war, there's these songs that you associate with that, you know, don't sit under the apple tree with anyone else but me, or we did it before, we'll do it again. The things of, you know, going off to fight the Kaiser, going off to defy Rome, and we're marching into the slaughter pen there in the arena, and we're singing as we go out to face the lions. I mean, it's always been, music's been a thing that brings the courage, because let me tell you something. In my young life, I started off being just a rock and roll doo-wop singer. You know, everybody dressing in the same J.C. Penney's shirt, you know, and working out some steps and what, and, you know, the doo-wop singing. to learning to play guitar and playing a little bit of Chuck Berry, Little Richard, whatnot, to all of a sudden I'm 11, 12 years old. I get invited to go down with my uncle and my cousin, J.R. Ross, Bonnie Ross, to the Highlander Center down in I'm spaced out on the name of the little town now, and it's right in the middle of the Cold War, the duck and cover generation. You know what I'm talking about. You know, you probably don't remember this, but you've probably read about it, Chris, where we were taught, like, here the siren goes off and we jump down beside our desk and put our hand here and I cover our neck, like that's going to make a difference. You know, and so to the point of like being so frightened every time in the middle of the night, if I heard an ambulance going by, I immediately thought the Russians were attacking. And so I go down to the Highlander Center, and there's Guy Carawan, who was the music director at that time of the Highlander Center. Now, we can talk about that later, but he's singing a song about Hiroshima, Nagasaki, Almagardo, talking about nuclear war and what are we going to do to survive. And all of a sudden I thought, oh, wow, a way to have a voice to fight back. Because if you can start singing to people and bringing them together, then all of a sudden it's not just you out there facing the mob, the Klan, the Alliance, whatever and the music is what brings us all together. And you don't have to know the words like Elijah said, but if you know the tune, then somebody can make up words, and all of a sudden the people around them start singing those same words. And that's what happens as you're marching in these marches and on the picket line. That's how these songs came about. It's almost like an implosion, and there they are. And that's what happened to me going from rock and roll. All of a sudden I thought, man, I can do more out there with the guitar by myself and singing these songs. And I know the times that we would cross KKK picket lines to go in to do a meeting. The singing together gave us the strength to know we could survive what was happening outside.
Wow.
I can do this whole hour by myself, so pull me out of this thing. There's just so much going on inside there. The older I get, the more is going on the canvas.
Well, just a little bit, if you don't mind, about, so you started when you were 11 or 12 or, young, and you've been basically playing. Talk a little bit about, that trajectory again, to use that word of, played festivals, played all kinds of places.
Well, because of meeting Guy Carawan, who took over from a brief stint by Woody Guthrie. A lot of people don't know this, that Woody Guthrie had been there at Highlander for a while. And Pete Seeger, and going backwards in time to Zilphia Horton. And Zilphia Horton hearing I'll Overcome being sung by those garment workers. I think South Carolina was where they came from, or Georgia. It was either South Carolina or Georgia, coming up and saying, well, we sing this on the picket line. And then getting to know Pete Seeger better, and we were on the board of directors of Sing Out for about 15, 20 years. And one day we were sitting there talking, he said, well, I had to change the words because I thought we shall as opposed to I will was more inclusive. And you had to know Pete to love him, because he was one of those kind of people. I've got to make this a little bit, I got to tweak it some. And then Guy Carawan teaching that song to Martin Luther King and to Rosa Parks. And all of a sudden, driving away from Highlander, Martin Luther King says, boy, that song's still in my head. That'd be a good song to kind of teach other people. Maybe that can be the song of the movement. And you just see it growing and growing. And that's what the people's music is all about. It's like finding ways to connect, even though you live in Chicago, you live in DC, you live in Portland. But when we all get together, we're all feeling that same thing. We've got to take control of our lives. We've got to run the ogre out of the people's house.
Yeah.
It may be called the White House, but my ancestors built that thing.
Yeah.
It's my house. You get out of there.
Wow.
If I could just
Go ahead.
interject one very quick thing, because there's a word that we learned not to use when me and Sparky were getting into this thing, and I think it's a good thing to just pull it in for a minute, which is the word communist.
Yeah.
Because Woody Guthrie came east because he was a columnist for the Daily Worker. And Sparky will remember, I mean, there was a time when there were billboards all over the South
Right.
showing Pete Seeger and Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King at Highlander with
At the
big
con-
lettering saying at the communist training camp.
Right.
We got to remember that, that was part of this history, and we were taught that that was an evil word, and socialism, we're being told again.
And they're using
Everybody's
it.
being told, yeah, they're using it again, and they're trying to stamp everybody with those words. Well, those words have some good history as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. It's so inspiring just listening to this. But, I was really happy that Brian Weber told me about Christylze, because, the new generation, that's who I believe in. That's who I want to listen to. And I kind of feel a little bit out of it in a way. I was talking with some friends the other day, and, what protest music is there now? And they said, oh my God, there's a lot,
Yeah.
and I look up, and I'm not listening to the radio the way we used to. So maybe I'm just out of it and I'm on my own social media. But, Chris, there's a whole generation of people, and they're making songs about George Floyd and Ferguson and all kinds of stuff. And so, I'm really curious about any perspective you have on this, and given the history, where do you see, your generation going? What are your thoughts about this?
It's really interesting. I mean, of course, people are writing songs about of course, like people in my generation have been writing songs about things that are going on, current things that are going on. Hold on, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Okay, cool. So of course, people are writing things. I remember when the rapper Lil Wayne wrote a song about what happened in with the Hurricane Katrina and what was happening down in New Orleans where he was from. You know what I'm saying? You got songs like that happening, and you got a song currently that's going down that a famous rapper right now, contemporary, named The Baby. He did a song about, like, COVID and stuff like that. Well, not really the funny thing, but the interesting, fascinating thing is that these aren't going to be the songs that are going to be on the top 10.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Because look, this one thing you got to keep in mind is that all the folks who own the distribution channels, they ain't black people. You know what I'm saying? They're not the rappers, and they don't come from my community. So protest songs that have to do with my community and like true issues that we're trying to like work on, not even just black people, just like human issues stuff. Like in order to reach the masses in that way that people have grown accustomed to receiving and consuming their music, they have to go through all of these checkpoints, right? And so people might be the people that probably on these checkpoints are like, oh nah, that's gonna mess up our paper. Let's not do that one. You know what I'm saying? The good part is that we do have the internet, and with the internet, we could put out music and it could reach people. You know what I'm saying? We could be on Instagram, we could be on Facebook and stuff. And there are some limitations there, like with musicians, like and DJs, you can't like really play copywritten material on lives on like Facebook, Instagram Live or whatever, because you receive a copyright strike and stuff. And you could get and they have the grounds to delete your account after that, as of October 1st of this year, 2020, Facebook and stuff like that. So people are doing it, but it reaching the light of day, like in the places where people are used to consuming the music, that's another thing right there.
Yeah. How is the music? I mean, you say the internet. I just don't even sort of know. I mean, there's SoundCloud and all these things.
Yes.
You can account, and I mean, I try to listen, I try to pay attention, but it's just not easy, and not easy really to know what, in many ways, what your generation's doing because you just see Taylor Swift on the, I don't know.
Yep, and that's what the people who are like industry backed, so they have like the resources to be all in front of your face. You know what I'm saying? And so that's where we have issues right there, right? And we've been having issues like that for years, especially as it pertains to hip hop, right? Like if I ask somebody like maybe in your generation, like what do you know of hip hop? Then and they might ring off certain things, or as a person who is responsible for being like a cultural emissary of both hip hop and DC culture. I talk to people all around the world. I talk to people many generations, and usually after I do a show, people are like, "Wow, like I'm like I finally understand more about hip hop," and now I'm like their palate is now set to consume hip hop because they now understand like context and all this stuff. But usually if I holler at folks from your generation, they'd be like, oh, hip hop is this and this. Oh, Val music. Oh, it is vagabond music, right? You know? But that's curation, and the curation is all about like the checkpoints once again, right? And we've always had this like hip hop has always been like Roy G. Biv. We have all these colors of the visible like spectrum, but they've only showed you the R and Roy G. Biv. They only show you red. You know what I'm saying? We've had at the same time that we had NWA that were talking about police brutality, but they were doing it in a way that was like really much like using a lot of profanity and just being like really abrasive, right? At the same time you have that. You also have Kid and Play doing like some really lighthearted, like fun stuff, right? And then at the same time you had that, you had really political rap like Public Enemy and Chuck D talking about things that are happening, talking about racism and stuff in the early 90s. So, you know what I'm saying? We got all this, but oftentimes it's curated like this. So if you go to SoundCloud, yeah, you could type in anybody and find them and stuff, but usually the people that you're going to see on front are going to be paid accounts, and they usually have money, and they back to see that. They're backed, you know what I'm saying? And so you're going to see them. They're going to be in the front of your face. So that's a new issue that we have to solve. It's like we have these open platforms, but how do you find out about something? You don't know that Mauritania exists if you never heard about it. Like, you know what I'm saying? If you just grew up in a hood or whatever, or just in the US and you never heard about it, you don't even know it exists. You know what I'm saying? Like, just like these artists, you don't even know the artist exists until someone put you on and share it. So that's the issue that we're working on right now. It's like, how do we market ourselves and reach everyone in a place on the internet where it's like oversaturated and and anyone could just do something,
Yeah, Sparky, what do you think about, or Elijah? Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to quick say, I agree with absolutely everything that Chris just said, but I do, Beyonce came forward about what was happening in New Orleans about Katrina. She made a really powerful video on that. Taylor Swift, who you just sort of said, oh, all I see is Taylor Swift. She just came out politically this year.
Yeah.
And has made some really strong political statements. Dave Chappelle did a great thing on George Floyd. I mean, it's true. If we're thinking about blowing up and getting famous, the politics of getting up and blowing up and getting famous is one thing. But the fact of just getting the word out there in communities, the political singers of the 1960s who really made a difference, who really created the songs, were people like Sparky was talking about all over the South, who were just, adding words to songs and singing things together. And the most famous of them were people like Bernice Regan and Cordell Regan and the Freedom Singers. But those people were making much more effective political music, I would say, than the Bob Dylans and the people who became superstars out of that. And that's going to be true today too. It's not just about blowing up. It's about people in their communities.
Right. And of course, if we hadn't had mimeograph machines and underground newspapers, we were able to get the word out to the people that needed to hear the word. And of course, like I said, all these secret meetings and rallies and whatnot. And the drum, as we used to call it, I guess we still call it that, but the drum sent word out all through the black community. I mean, it was going faster than radio could do it sometimes, you know. And in the old days, and when I mean the old days, I'm talking medieval times and before, there was always the minstrel that went from community to community, bringing the news, bringing the newest broadside ballad, talking about what happened with King Richard on the Crusade, talking about, you know, that's how the news got spread was through the minstrels, you know. So it's up to us. If we don't do our job, the world is doomed. It's simple.
Well, I'm just so, it's so interesting how we're talking about community, and in a way also the difficulty of, I don't know, touching, capturing, getting out some of the community that I think it would be good if we had more of now, you know.
People been out in the streets. This has been a pretty good year for people getting out in the streets and building a community. I've been really I mean, there's a lot of bad stuff out there, but I've been really excited this year.
It helps to have a focus for your anger. Because, I mean, I was in D.C. the night before the Women's March. You know, I had been playing, I was doing some performing in some of the folk clubs around D.C. And I said, well, Rhonda, you know, we better hit the road, or, you know, we got 500-mile drive. You know, we don't want to get stuck into traffic. And I had no idea it was going to be as big as it was. But I was seeing people walking around the day before carrying signs, and there's things that I don't want to say because I try not to be profane when I'm talking. I figure you can throw the dig out there without people coming up to kids' ears. But there was this one woman carrying a sign walking down the street talking about the Access Hollywood tape and how she felt about this person getting ready to come in to profane the people's house. And most of us in the 60s, 70s, you know, because I feel like I'm still in this movement. You know, my knees are bad, but I'm still out there doing what I can and trying to post things in little blurbs so you can see it on Facebook, you know, making sure I got enough words to keep the words big and put it behind a color like a big bumper sticker. And all of my 5,000 followers tend to pass those things along. So I know I'm striking my blow, you know. And, you know, probably right now they're building a second dossier on me, you know, like COINTELPRO did on me in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I feel like, you know, if I'm making them worried, I'm doing my job.
Yeah, well, your mention of the Women's March strikes home. We went down there. That was an incredible weekend. That was Donald Trump's inauguration, and it was really kind of a dark day. And we went down to that Women's March and were just blown away by the seas of people who came out, and we felt, okay, we got this. But then we're in this roller coaster now, you know, up and down.
George Floyd brought that same energy back. What happened there just
much big, at least where I'm in Philadelphia. And I mean, after the George Floyd thing, there was a period of about 2 weeks. You didn't even have to know where the demonstration was or when. You just walk out your door and walk towards downtown and join the first march, because there were people everywhere in the streets. And I think I haven't seen energy like that. I think since the 60s.
Yeah.
And I hope it keeps going, but it feels like it's a young crowd.
Yeah.
It's a much blacker crowd than we got in the Women's March. I have to say that. And
I like seeing us all together again, because that's how we did it in the 60s. It was everybody out there. And we're finally starting to do it again. These young white kids getting out there, putting their life on the line too. I love it. I love seeing, hey, you know, this is my brother.
Yeah.
You know, we got to stop putting ourselves in these little groups. That's, you know, the world is my responsibility. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah,
I said before we went live, I figure if I pull my finger out of the dike, we're gonna all drown. So I got to stand there and hold this thing back. It's my job.
Yeah, I think the pause of COVID gave us gave everyone the lens and the opportunity to pay attention, because if this would have happened during another period of time, as it has happened like many times before, and we've seen the video, you know what I'm saying, the response hasn't been like that. But since COVID put us just at a standstill, everyone can notice it, and then it's spreading on social media. So not about blowing up, but like ideas do spread, you know what I'm saying. People are able to see this, and everyone started responding. So it's just like that combination of this thing plus COVID, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris, have you seen a lot of you have seen movement, I'm sure, in your generation now with the political scene, George Floyd, everything else? I mean, what else is happening? What do you need us to do? How can we help?
Well, I mean, of course we need to of course we all need to stay connected like Tetris, you know what I'm saying? Like generations before us and my generation under, like we need to keep that. I feel like sometimes our country, like the United States, becomes like a anti-intellectual like you know, coaching country, because we're always trying to like take the elders and push them away and be like, oh yeah, no, he out of the game now, it's us, you know what I'm saying? But now we need to be connected, because there's stuff that I mean I still talk to my mom about stuff, and like and she still gives me some nuggets to this day, and I teach my mom new things, you know what I'm saying? So we should always stay connected. So I guess if we're all like connecting with each other, we're good to go, you know what I'm saying? Like you like we're out here doing these things like this, and then you're like, oh man, yo, they did that same thing in the 60s. Look, go like this. You know what I'm saying? Turn to the left. And you know what I'm saying? And I think it's a good look.
You will be hearing from me after this day.
Vamos, let's go.
Okay, Chris? You
Yes,
understand
sir.
what I'm saying? You will be hearing from me.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, I would love to, man. I would love to.
Yeah, well, you know, man, let me know too. We gotta. I think there's a lot of people feeling this. This has been a brutal time these last few years, and right now with the virus, that little thing in the air blowing in the wind, you know,
Man.
really forced us to, I think, you know, recognize what we really value too. And you know, I do believe that, you know, musicians, artists, you know, can lead the way there. Any other thoughts? I mean, it's such a good conversation, but I'm curious to listen to you guys and see what you have to say.
One thing that has to happen, and you know, Elijah brought this up. Remember this book, Elijah?
Oh yeah.
This came out of the 30s. IWW's handbook of songs, and I got 3 or 4 different versions of that. And then here's something that came out in the 70s, 80s, and it's just chants to use while you're on the picket line, giving you ideas. And I remember we used to take things like The Land of a Thousand Dances. Remember that song? Na 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 na. We're gonna march to freedom. Oh yeah, you know. And then you just adding these words, because once again you got a tune everybody knows. Then you come up with with something that goes with the meat of that song, and all of a sudden you got everybody singing it. You know, people say, "How'd you guys learn that song?" I learned it 5 minutes before you heard it.
Wow. No, that's amazing. That's amazing. you see, it's like such a simple thing, but of course for me, you know what I'm saying, it's like a it's like discovering like a new fruit. It's like, oh, this joint is good, you know what I'm saying? like for me, I'm like, yo, this is a brilliant idea. You take the momentum off a really popular song right now, but you spoof it for the political movement to disseminate information.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing Sparky was showing us, the IWW thing, they actually wrote a lot of songs to the Salvation Army songs, because you could set up right down the street from where the Salvation Army band was playing and use them as your backup group.
And just rock to them.
And so you would just sing political stuff over whatever they were playing. Yeah, no, I think, you know, they're all those things that are ways of bringing people in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's a thing. I mean, honestly, it's one of the things that scares me about the internet and all of this is that it becomes, they call this thing a community, but a community is a lot of people being in the same room. And also, a community is having to deal with people even when you may disagree with them.
Yeah.
And my problem with the internet is it creates a thing where if you're not happy with somebody, you can just push a button and they're not
Yeah.
there anymore. And that's not how communities work. Communities work where when you've got a disagreement, you got to work it through in the community, and you have these people around who are helping you do that. And I feel like we're the internet is teaching us not to make communities. It's teaching us to form these tiny little groups where we can stop listening to anything we don't want to hear. And that part of it scares me.
Yeah, that's that algorithm part right there. Like, oh yeah, I show you whatever you click on. You like, oh, you like seeing that. I'm gonna give you more of that. But at the same time, right, there are pros and cons with everything, right?
Absolutely.
And like, and while we have that digital community right there, we could also have a huge community, and we could be like talking to each other simultaneously. Like okay, we about to go out and do this thing. I'm hitting. We got people from Richmond up here. We got Chicago people up in here. We got Detroit youngins up in here. We got, you know what I'm saying? And we could all be connected. The craziest examples I've seen of that stuff is like in Brazil using WhatsApp. You know WhatsApp?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
yo, like man, just like organizing using using WhatsApp for protests. Like yo, we rolling. And then of course in China and Hong Kong, they were doing the
Absolutely.
same thing, and their stuff, what's happening in Hong Kong and how they were doing their protests, it's very admirable. Like the systems that they have in place, like oh yeah, they doing the gas, like, and then they had like supply chains like in the protests, like oh yeah, we're bringing these resources. They were kind of like ants with it, you know, like so yeah. At the same time, we can't be in that space like that, but it allows us to be a
Absolutely.
larger network, you know.
Absolutely. No, for bringing people out, it's amazing.
Yeah, but it's like what you're touching on is a bit of the algorithm stuff in addition to cancel culture. You know what I'm saying?
What's that? Oh, counterculture. Yeah.
Cancel culture, which because of a mistake, a person cancels them and there's no room for redemption. You know what
Wow.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it's just like, oh nah, he's gone forever. He is canceled. Like he said one wrong thing. It's just like, oh, I'm sorry, I was hella ignorant about the joint. Like, nah, you done. You know what I'm saying? And we need redemption too. You know what I'm saying? And that's the type of thing that you will get in this communal space that you speak of, Elijah. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, okay, this dude did this, but he's a part of the thing. So we got to work this out somehow because we got to walk down this thing together.
Yeah,
Well,
and we
I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
It's interesting you should say that because, like I said, Facebook's the only thing I do because that's all my folky friends are on there.
I could dig it.
I've heard, oh man, he's dead. That's because there's so many now. We're so old. It's like every week or so. Oh, now Fred's gone. But I said, well, who's coming to my funeral? But I've got friends because the kind of music we play, sometimes we play at like bluegrass festivals too. We're the token folk group that comes in. And a lot of those people are really right wing. I'll just be honest with you about it. And they love our music. And so they're also on my Facebook friends. And they're the ones that when one of my radical Marxist friends, which I've got tons of, posts something, then they come on and try to give the other side. And they say, well, why don't you just delete that guy? I said, well, how am I going to change him? If
Come
I
on,
Delete it.
come
Yeah.
on, come on.
Yeah.
That's because they like me enough, they listen to me. They may not agree with everything I say, but they like me enough that they'll listen to me. And that's the way you make the changes. It is evolution. It's not revolution.
Man, yeah, I'm with you 300%. I mean, I got friends, right? I got friends who like white, and then they're from like this place and other place, and they have family members, right? Like generation up and two generations up, and they just not about the same thing that they're about. Like as far as like seeing like, oh no, people are people, they're cool people, they're not so cool people in every group. And but they're quick to cancel their family members and just hang out with us. And over here, I'm like, nah, don't cancel your family members.
Yeah.
They love you. Talk to them.
Yeah.
Talk to them. Like we have to have non-judgmental conversations with people and try to figure out what it is. You know what I'm saying? Why are they this way? And just educate them. You know what I'm saying? Like we need to hear each other. And because I think that's another thing that's happening in this era is like the divisiveness of media and of social media, like giving you like just what you want to see and nothing else. Like we have a whole side of this country just paying attention to this news network, and then we have another side of the country doing this over here, and then both are just doing nothing but just like reinforcing your confirmation bias, right?
Yeah.
And the problem is we're not at the same watering holes together to encounter each other and to learn about each other. So then that's when it just gets real tough, because it's like I'm gonna stay on that side forever and you stay on that side forever, and we never get a chance to figure this out, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, and I mean, I also noticed when we were getting out in the street, there are class things also that get involved in all of this. I mean, along with the gender and the race and whatever. And I mean, people who have more money, more middle class people, I come from that background. We're a lot more used to isolating ourselves, and it's a lot easier for us to shut people out. I mean, if you're living in a community where you have to depend on each other, it's a lot harder to shut people out. And I was noticing in the George Floyd protests, there was this moment that to me was really, I don't know, deep, let's say, where there's this woman, black woman, older woman speaking, and she was talking about her fear every day when her two grown sons go out and her daughter, who's a policewoman, and the worries about the three of them. And there's this young white kid in front of me holding up this sign saying, "Fuck the police." And I'm thinking, are you listening to this woman? Because, I mean, and I was noticing that, the Black Lives Matter protesters, the Black Lives Matter protesters were kneeling with the police and trying to make some sort of communication, because they have to deal with this in real life in their communities,
Right.
and they want to make a communication. And there were white kids who it's easy for them to just, scream against this because they're not scared of the police. They don't have to deal with the police. It's an abstraction. And I think it's really important. It's one of the reasons I was really glad to see people out in the street, because when you're out there, at least for a moment, it stops being an abstraction.
Yeah. Well,
And
it's
you
like
have
that Kenosha kid, after he kills two people and wounds another, walks up to the police and they just wave at him. He goes on by. If his face had been black, he would have been mown down on the streets of Kenosha. That would have been it. Just like the Black Panthers, when they were trying to have the unloaded guns standing away from the police reading the riots. Can you imagine if they tried to do that now? They'd all been dead. It would have been more than just Fred Hampton that was murdered.
This is just so amazing. We're at such an inflection point, it seems to me anyway. I mean, things are just wild in so many different ways, but here we are, and thanks to you for having a conversation about music, political songs, protest songs, intentional songs. I like to think of them that way. Here's what I think about this. Here's what I want to put out there. But it comes down to community and listening. Listening is so important in music. Maybe musicians should be good at that anyway. I work on it, but we may have to all get out in this. You don't know what's going to happen the next month or couple months. We may have to really get out in the streets. So what do you all think about, what's next? What can we do? What can musicians do? Any thoughts? I mean, Sparky, I'm with you. From this Hawaiian teaching of Ho'oponopono, I kind of take the perspective, if there's a problem, it's my problem to fix. How am I going to do that? It's a big problem. But, together with the community, maybe we can make some progress, and, we can all make little differences, like little, a leaf falling in that water behind me. I've watched it many times, makes a big, circle of rings, the waves that go out like that. Do you have thoughts about, all of you? What can we do? What's coming up? What should we look for? What should we strive to do? What can we do better? Any thoughts like that?
I know one thing. If the Supreme Court in November rules the way I think they're going to try to rule on the Affordable Care Act, my wife and my son are going to lose their health care. And that scares the heck out of me. That scares the heck out of me, and I wish more people were paying attention to this. That's why the discussion we had before we started, those are the things you got to stay on top of, is like make people realize, hey, the down ballot races are just as important as a presidential race, because these are the people that make the laws. These are the ones that, like the Tennessee governor, about, I'm going to say a month ago, just made a law that if you get arrested in a protest, it's going to be a felony and you're going to lose your right to vote.
Oh man.
He didn't try to hide that. This is the law in Tennessee now.
It's a tough time.
I mean, it's the First Amendment. It's the very First Amendment in the Constitution. And this guy's threatening to take it away because you're exercising your right by the Constitution of the United States.
But can't he even take that away because it's just baked in our Constitution already?
Well, because he also controls the legislature. They've made a law saying that it's going to be I think a fourth class felony, which will take away your right to vote. And he legally did this.
Wow, people try too hard. People try too hard. I feel like this whole year is like trying too hard to come for people's health, their brightness, their happiness, their light. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's important for us to, even though times are hard, is to try to keep our light and to try to power up however we could power up. And so this goes to what you're saying, Jefferson, sir. Like musicians, if you feel called to write these songs about the moment, write that song and get that joint out there. But if you're just not about that life because you're not that well informed and stuff like that, instead of misleading people, then write your song to lift people up. You know what I'm saying? To give people hope, because we need to be up in this joint, like hammering away, but then we also need to unwind and get our party on too. So we need both. We need both classes and categories of musicians and of songs, partying and protest. You know what I'm saying?
And they don't have to be separate. You can do both.
Hey.
Well, like my concerts are like going to church. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I come from a long line of Church of God sanctified preachers, And my daddy, by the way, was a cop. And wow. he was the one that gave me the talk about bad cops. So that's that dichotomy. Hey man, no, I'm not saying shoot the cops, but because there's some good ones out there.
Yeah.
The good ones have to be the ones that police the bad ones.
That's
why you got to make sure you don't put them all in the same basket, because they're the ones that can control them. But yeah, like one thing I insist people sing with me. I say I want it to sound like it did in my granddaddy's church. I want to hear everybody singing, and so I can, as Rhonda says, go in there and Ray Charles up that song. Get the people singing, then you do that answer back thing Ray Charles did.
Wow.
Oh yeah. So what I try to tell young kids in these music camps, if you're gonna write a song, make sure other people can sing it besides you.
Yes. Yeah. Man, do you come to DC much? Do you know go-go music?
I do come to, but no, I don't know that. Tell me about it.
So it's a style of music.
Yeah.
It was just this year put in the mayor declared it the official music of DC. As far as like just the people, it has always been the official music of DC. But go-go is a style of music created by this guy named Chuck Brown. It's like a type of beat. So it's like playing a marathon. Like the party starts at 8, ends at 10. This band is gonna be playing from 8 to 10, like without break. The music and just goes continuously. It goes and goes. But what is key to go-go music is percussion, but call and response. Always with call and response. So the audience always has a part to say. Like, saying you can sing along, but then there's gonna be a place. Like say a southeast, southeast, say what? Southeast. So like things like this. And so it makes a really good like situation for the crowd being one. And just like these things that you're explaining, I'm just like, man, there's some go-go stuff right here.
Yeah, I mean, the thing you just said. I mean, that chant you just started chanting, you can put in anything there instead of Southeast.
Yeah.
Yes.
So say a George Floyd, what's that? I mean, whatever it is.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's what's interesting if you're watching what's happening in another city on television. You hear the people marching by and this little group is doing this thing. Then all of a sudden here's another group doing another song and another chant and whatnot. It makes me feel good. I got to tell you, my glass is always half full. My wife says, "Don't you ever?" I said, "But I always have to believe there's hope." This is why I'm still going. I've always got to believe I can make a difference. We can change this thing. If I become despondent, the world's in trouble. I'm always optimistic about that we're going to work this thing out.
Well,
You can blame it on me if something doesn't go right in this next election.
Like, dang,
I'll
Sparky
let
didn't
you
do
know.
it.
I hear you. Yeah, we all need to do our part. One thing we're trying here with our little Planetary Gigs Society is I mentioned this last time we talked, but Concerts for Democracy coming up this weekend. We've got a few people pre-recorded songs, protest political intentional songs. We're just going to put them out there, but it's really the bigger thought of it's not just a concerts. Like, how about 1 million concerts between now and the next 6 months? Or, what can we get out there and do? We're isolated in many ways and not together, but we also have this medium where you can touch people around the world. So, hope people will check that out. But I'm looking forward to, I want to be marching down the street with you guys, really.
Maybe you can push my wheelchair or something.
I got a bad knee too. I may have to get in there every once in a while. Any other final thoughts about this topic? I mean, it's just the community that's drawn together through the music is so important, and it just seems really a key time to kind of focus on that and do what we can to build that up. So, man, I hope anybody listening will take that to heart. As Christylze says, write down that song if you can. Do whatever you can. Any other last
I
thoughts?
do hope somebody's documenting what you guys are doing, Chris. I really, really do, because, like I said, here's one of the books from the civil rights, and here's another one from the civil rights movement, and all the songs. Here's something that came out about the mountain people's struggle. I mean, all these things I had some connection with.
Wow.
Because it needs to be documented. We don't want to forget this thing, because you guys are moving mountains. Thank God the reinforcements showed up. Thank you.
Thank God. Yeah.
About reinforcements, man.
Look, I found this discussion with you all to be very fruitful, and I'm gonna share this more with my channels and stuff like that, and I hope that we could follow each other and keep sharing information.
Yeah.
It's like it's amazing. It's like I don't know. It's so fascinating because it's not really that many years separated. Like, but what I'm saying? It's crazy. It's just like, yeah. I mean, we need to be sharing the ideas back and forth, because like y'all seen these things before. It ain't new. You know what I'm saying?
Are you on Facebook?
Yep, I'm on the Book of Faces. I'm on the Instantaneous Gram. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, all those things.
James Sparky Rucker.
All right, let me get it.
Yeah, we'll
Friend me.
we'll keep connected here too.
Yeah.
Elijah, any further final words there?
No, just pleased to be on this, listening to these gentlemen. This has been really great.
It's good seeing you, man. I miss you. We don't run into each other nearly as much as we used to.
No, though I'm in Philly now, I'm a little bit closer. So as soon as things clear up a little, I'm going to try to get down your way.
All right, I'll come too. Chris, you in?
What, the Philly?
No,
Go
he's
see
down.
Sparky.
Say again?
Go see
He's
Sparky.
down in Knoxville. You're still in Knoxville, right,
Oh,
Sparky?
you're there. I'm in an adjoining county.
Okay.
Oh man, see, I gotta learn how to drive first. I
Well,
don't know how
not
to
for-
drive. I'm like a DC head.
Not for
I
Philly,
got
you
you.
don't. Philly, you
Philly,
just
I'm
get on
good.
the train. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no place to park. Why drive? You know.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a car, Chris. You come with me.
Yeah, you're in DC, no?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
born and bred in DC.
Wow, let's go. And then Sparky, I see you connected to my OG Mitch right there.
There's a lot of people you may recognize if you have a few older folks. I got a lot of young people in mind too. You know.
Yeah.
They're the kids of my friends.
And people listen. If you want to catch up with any of us, and let's take that baton and keep passing it on, right?
Is there a way to post our websites on your site there?
Oh yeah. Well, actually, that's a good idea. If everybody could just say what their thing is, I'll put it in up. I'll put it on at some point.
Mine is sparkyandrhonda.com. It's all spelled out. sparkyandrhonda.com.
Okay.
She should have been on this panel too.
It's true.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm just ElijahWald.com.
Just Elijah.
Yeah.
Well,
what's
you got two people. I only got one.
my website is it's Christylze.com, but you could also type in progressivehiphop.com and then you'll find me.
yeah. Hey, maybe just to wrap up, I mentioned human beatbox earlier. You got a little sound for us right here?
Let's see what things I'm doing. Oh, y'all got to check out this series I got called Beatbox Remix. So what I'm doing to connect people is just who don't even speak the same language. I'm using like my first instrument, the human beatbox, to collaborate with musicians that play traditional music from different countries. So cats might not even speak the same language, but the music is coming together. And so if you go to beatboxremix.com, then you will catch these videos and stuff, or type in Beatbox Remix Christylze Bacon in YouTube, and you'll see that with Arab traditional music, Chinese music, all this stuff, Brazilian music. All right, here we go. Let's see. I'm not from the suburbs. Picking is very meticulous, sick with their style. I do it on the whim with people that will pick up a rap style and break your rap stamp and have you unwilling to rap. Now I think fast, and when I back down, post some stupid stuff, I play the background. Cause Styles represents the strongest element from the south side. We call it continent.
Yeah.
Chris,
Got another fan here, buddy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sparky Rucker, Elijah Wald, Christylze. Appreciate it very much. We'll see y'all down the road. Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.
God bless.
All right,
Thank you.
ciao.